What are the limitations of the 14th Amendment? What are the limitations of the 14th Amendment? This amendment was a major step in securing citizenship and equal protection under the law, especially for formerly enslaved individuals after the Civil War. However, it has several notable limitations that affected its effectiveness. First, while the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, it did not automatically apply all protections of the Bill of Rights against the states. Early Supreme Court decisions limited the amendment's reach. This meant that states could infringe on certain individual rights without federal intervention. As a result, the amendment's immediate impact on civil rights at the state level was limited. Second, the Privileges or Immunities clause was intended to protect personal rights. However, courts interpreted this clause narrowly, which reduced its power to safeguard citizens, particularly Black Americans, from discriminatory state laws. This allowed many states to enact laws that imposed restrictions, such as denying the right to bear arms or limiting access to courts. These laws often targeted freed slaves and their descendants. Third, the amendment included provisions that barred former Confederates from holding public office unless Congress removed this restriction by a two-thirds vote. While this aimed to reshape political power after the war, it also reflected the political compromises of the Reconstruction era. Over time, former Confederates regained influence, undermining the amendment's intent. Fourth, Section 4 of the amendment prohibits the government from paying debts incurred in support of the Confederacy or compensating for the emancipation of slaves. This limitation affected financial restitution and shaped post-war economic policies. However, it did not address broader economic inequalities faced by freed individuals. Fifth, the enforcement of the amendment's provisions relied heavily on Congress and the executive branch. Section 5 gave Congress the power to enforce the amendment through legislation. In practice, enforcement was uneven and often weakened by political resistance, especially after Reconstruction ended. This allowed discriminatory practices, such as segregation and voter suppression, to persist for decades despite the amendment's promises. In summary, while the 14th Amendment was a landmark legal change after the Civil War, its limitations include the restricted application of the Bill of Rights to states, narrow judicial interpretations, political compromises, financial restrictions on reparations, and reliance on political will for enforcement. These limitations meant that the amendment's full promise of equality and protection was not realized immediately, requiring further legal and social struggles in the years that followed.